Hey, great to be with you, Hugh. Thank you.
I did see the latest poll had you ahead in Montana, but of course, turnout matters. Does the Democrat obstruction of the Supreme Court nominee figure into the Montana vote?
Well, I think what it does, Hugh, is it further crystallizes the choice before Montanans and the American people in this election. I mean, just let's step back for a moment. The future of this country, as we all know, depends on what happens on November 3rd. And the Supreme Court is yet one more reminder about how important these races are. The race I have in Montana, it's a tight race. It's a margin of error race right now. And the Supreme Court issue here is going to help because Montanans want to make sure that we appoint judges who are going to defend our Montana way of life, those who are going to defend the Second Amendment. I can't imagine if you let Joe Biden and my opponent, who's the governor of Montana, Steve Bullock, put a liberal activist judge on the court who would be a gun grabbing judge who would not push back on these radical environmental groups that oftentimes are shutting down, whether it's our energy economy or our national forests. So this is going to be a really clear choice, Hugh, and I look forward to further, kind of litigating this issue in front of the people of Montana here as we get closer to November 3rd.
Now, Senator Daines, I've taken thus far 102 phone calls from listeners across the United States, including Montana, on whether or not the Republicans ought to move to confirm the president's nominee, which he will announce on Saturday before the election. The vote is 100 to 2 of my listeners. Now, they're a center right audience to begin with, but they want the Republicans to move expeditiously. Will it get done before the election, Senator?
Let me tell you something, Hugh. We didn't waste any time in declaring our support for the president's constitutional right and responsibility to move forward on nominating a replacement. It's right there in Article 2, Section 2. The president nominates and the Senate either confirms or rejects. Back in 2016, President Obama nominated and the Senate rejected that nomination. In 2020, President Trump now is nominating a conservative judge, and I am confident the United States Senate, led by Republicans, is going to get this done before the election.
You know, I was on Reverend Al Sharpton's show on Saturday, and he got angry because he said the senators didn't even vote in 2016. That is, in fact, a rejection when they choose not to vote. But
what difference does it make, Hugh? I mean, what happened is that thank God for these strong Republican senators on the Judiciary Committee who just said we're not going to let them pass the Judiciary Committee. We're not going to have a hearing, and so that's where it got stopped. But I tell you what, Hugh, if there would have been a vote, we would have rejected the judge, and so that is our constitutional responsibility to either appoint or reject a nominee from the president. We rejected the nominee in 2016 because Obama nominated a liberal judge. We're going to support President Trump in his nomination of a conservative judge.
now, yesterday, Reuters and Newsweek began to run anti Catholic stories about Amy Coney Barrett on the short list of the president among possible nominees. Senator Sass rebuked them for that. Do you expect anti Catholicism to play heavily in the Democratic game against whoever the nominee is, if that nominee is Catholic?
Yeah, if it's if you look at the short list right now, it's likely this nominee is going to be Catholic, and I can guarantee you they're coming after the fact that these nominees have a faith. I mean, this replays that whole dogma point that was made in the judiciary hearing when Amy Coney Barrett was approved. This ought to be chilling to listeners here today who believe in religious liberty as I do. Good grief! And I'll tell you what, Hugh. When the crazy liberal mob and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. go after, let's say it's Amy Coney Barrett for a moment, go after her because of her Catholic faith, I will take that fight all day. I'll take that culture war all day. Put that on TV. Let the American people see what's going on in terms of the way the other folks on this side of this aisle think, because it's a clear violation of the First Amendment and religious freedom. It concerns me. And so what they did to Justice Kavanaugh, get ready, Hugh, because they're going to throw everything at this next nominee coming from President Trump.
Will Steve Bullock, your opponent, denounce anti Catholicism?
I sure hope he does. I mean, this is ground that that all of us should come together on. But I'll tell you what, I think it's yet one more indication of how far to the left the Democrats have gone and how faithless they have become. They want to drive faith completely out of the public square, and by the fact that remember, Amy Coney Barrett had a Catholic faith, it was referred to as dogma. Hugh, I mean, that is just a place in this nation. It's a sad moment when you hear that kind of thinking coming out. But just get ready, Hugh, and listeners should be ready here. What they're going to throw at Trump's nominee is going to be outrageous. They're going to try to Kavanaugh this nominee just like they went after Brett Kavanaugh. And we've got to stand firm, defend this nominee, and I think, Hugh, what it will do, just like it did back in 2018, it's going to crystallize for those voters, those few who are left who are undecided on where this country should head. They're going to say you can't let the liberal mob take over this country.
I want to play for you Senator Don Lemon from 2 nights ago, a CNN anchor, supposed to be a newsman, a journalist. Here he is talking with Chris Cuomo in their crosstalk as their shows switched over. Cut number 25.
Everybody sticks.
We're going to have to blow up the entire system. And you know what we're going to have to do?
No, I don't know.
You know what we're going to? Yes,
Yeah.
what you have to do?
You just got to vote.
Honestly, from what your closing argument is, you're going to have to get rid of the Electoral College. Because the people...
I don't see it.
Because the minority in this country decides who the judges are and they decide who the president is.
But you need a constitutional amendment to do that.
And if Joe Biden wins, Democrats can stack the courts and they can do that amendment and they can get it passed.
Well, you need 2/3
danger.
vote in the Congress and 3/4 of the state legislatures.
They may be able to do that.
That is so radical, Senator Daines, and it's on CNN, allegedly an anchor. Is Steve Bullock this radical too? Are all Democrats, have they all gone off the rails like Don Lemon?
Listen, Hugh, Chuck Schumer flew into Montana and personally recruited Steve Bullock into this race just days before the filing deadline. This was just earlier this year in March. After Bullock had said repeatedly, I'm not running for the Senate, Schumer flew into Montana and talked him into the race. Steve Bullock will follow whatever Chuck Schumer does. And Hugh, here's the playbook. And what you just saw in that clip is the movie trailer. But they're going to move forward in D.C. statehood. You know, Pelosi passed that back in June. That was the first time ever in the history of Congress, either chamber, where they passed D.C. statehood. That's what's coming unless you have a Republican control of the United States Senate that would stop it. 2 more Democrat senators forever from D.C. Then you go to Puerto Rican statehood. That's 2 more Democrat senators. There's 4. Then, of course, you move to the Supreme Court and you go to either 11 or 13 justices. They'll pack it. And then, keep in mind, the House, and Pelosi has up her sleeve, that she wants to expand the number of House members. That can be done by statute. That's not by constitutional amendment, to expand the number of members in the United States House. That is the way you get around the Electoral College. Because if you notice that back and forth between Lemon and Cuomo on that CNN clip, they made the point, well, it's, you have to have a 2/3 vote, it's a constitutional amendment, and so forth. Well, there's ways to get around that if you added more House members. That puts a lock on the Electoral College. Former Democrat senators puts a lock on the Senate, and then 13 Supreme Court justices puts a lock on the Supreme Court. Hugh, that would absolutely put a lock for leftist tyranny for this country, arguably for the next 40 or 50 years. It's a chilling thought. It's all on the table right now on November 3rd. We've got to make sure this gets stopped.
Do you believe that Montana voters understand the Supreme Court holds the key to their Second Amendment rights, their free exercise rights, their property rights?
Yeah, Montanans are very aware of the impact that the federal courts have on their way of life. And it's not just the Supreme Court, it's also the Ninth Circuit Court, of which Montana is a part of. We call that the Ninth Circus Court, Hugh.
Yes.
That's a California-centric leftist court. And here's the outcome of reelecting President Trump and having a Republican majority in the United States Senate. We will flip the Ninth Circuit Court by the time President Trump ends his second term to have a majority of appointed Republican judges. In fact, every circuit court, based on the projections we have seen, will have flipped to a majority of Republican-appointed courts. I think we have 7 out of 12 at the moment. There's 5 left. We project all 5 of those will flip if we get 4 more years of President Trump and Republican majority in the United States Senate. And I think, Hugh, if you look at the current map right now for the Senate races, we've got some tough races out there. As we look at the 2 states, I think right now are firewall states that will probably decide whether or not we are sure we hold the Senate or not. It comes down to Montana and Iowa. There's a New York Times poll, Siena poll, that's a highly rated poll that came out last week, had me up by 1 point in Montana. 1 point, Hugh. And so I just plead to the listeners, watch what's going on in these states and these Senate races. Our website is stevedaines.com. It's stevedaines.com. Bullock just raised, we expect, $20 to $25 million this past quarter because of what's going on right now at the Supreme Court. The liberals are waking up and pouring money in these races. We've got to make sure conservatives do the same thing. This is going to be a firefight to the end. We're 40 days out.
SteveDaines.com. Last question, Senator. Do your colleagues know that we cannot keep the energy in the base if they do not move this nominee? They have to move this nominee, especially if they introduce the articles of impeachment ploy to try and freeze the Senate. You've got to get it done that day. Are you prepared to move quickly?
Yes, we are, Hugh. I spoke with the president yesterday. I spoke with Lindsey Graham yesterday. And, Hugh, I'll tell you what, when you're talking to the commander-in-chief as well as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, that's pretty good sources to talk about where we go next. We are absolutely committed. The president is pushing hard. Lindsey Graham is pushing hard. There is a schedule laid out right now, Hugh, with announcing this nominee on Saturday, moving into hearings in the first part of October, getting a vote on the floor of the United States Senate by the end of October, the week before the election. That is going to be an amazing time in American history, as you're going to see Republican senators standing beside this nominee, passing with, I would expect, 51 votes, and putting this new nominee, a woman, a great woman, on the United States Supreme Court.
Steve Daines, great to talk to you, Senator. Good luck in your race up in Montana. Steve Daines for Montana, right, Senator?
It's just stevedaines.com. It's really
easy.
stevedaines.com.
That's easy.
stevedaines.com, yep.
Daines, America. Daines.